Welcome into the studio in Fayetteville. I am Brett Rorie, joined by Eric Harris. Oddly enough, Rachel Caldwell could not make with us today to another football arrangement with the American football, sadly. She's just copping out on us, Eric, isn't she?
It's too bad. There's a lot more space here on the desk.
Yeah, it just feels kind of like we got more
we've got a lot more
today,
room
so
for activities.
That's one good thing, like karate and things like that,
Absolutely.
maybe in the garage afterwards. But let's get things started here. Now, last week, I want to talk about this, but sadly we could not do a show. So let's get to this week, and it's Atletico Madrid over in La Liga. Everyone thinks that this is a Real Madrid and Barcelona league. But when looking at it last week, Atletico Madrid had a huge win over Real Madrid. I believe it was a 1-0 win, so that's huge for them, and they rebounded with another win. They're currently 8-0 and have a goal differential of 15.
Fantastic.
Is Atletico Madrid for real? Are they a team that can possibly get into the top two in the La Liga?
I think they can definitely challenge this year because when you look at it, they've been a team that's been in the Europa League for the past few years. They've won the Europa League a couple times, actually. But now I think they've gotten a couple signings. Toby Alderweireld, excellent young Belgian defender. David Villa, they got him for next to nothing from Barcelona this year. So they're a team, they finished third last year in the league behind. But I think this year they have more depth. They have a lot more quality players that can challenge a team like Real Madrid.
When looking at it, David Villa, you look at it, he was a guy that essentially was going to go to Arsenal last season during the transfer period for a lot of money, and he was essentially just given away to Atletico Madrid for almost nothing. What has been the key to him? Do you think he's just more relaxed now playing in a smaller place like Madrid instead of a high pressure area like Barcelona?
Well, I think that still Madrid's a pretty high pressure situation, but nowhere near Barcelona's. I think it's important that he came in there with not a lot of expectations, and he came into a situation that he was very comfortable in, being the leader of that squad, being the guy that the other younger players of Madrid can look to and see themselves as.
Now, looking at an interesting point is their manager currently, he's been there for a couple of seasons now and won, their main cup last year in Spain, defeating Real Madrid in the final, and now doing extremely well. Do you think his name will come up around other big coaching opportunities like a Man United if David Moyes doesn't stick around, or possibly even a place in the Premier League or the Bundesliga?
I'd say so. I'd especially think that if Madrid or Barcelona has to get a new manager sometime soon, they will definitely have no problem throwing around just tons of cash at this manager, wanting him to come and fix their side.
Now let's move on to a squad that surprised a lot of people, to a team I think that everyone expected to be very good, and a player that everyone expected to be very good, and Andre Pirlo. Pirlo's came out and looked fantastic. He had another free kick goal this past weekend. Just an absolutely beautiful midfielder that is by far one of the best players in the world still, even at 34 years old. But he is 34 years old, and there's a lot of rumors that Juventus is looking to possibly sign him, but if they don't, they might decide to transfer him in the next transfer market. Do you think this is the right move for Juventus to get rid of Pirlo?
I don't think so. I think he's happy in the situation he's in. I think the rumors said that he could possibly be moving to a Premier League club in London maybe. I don't see that as a possibility because Pirlo is a guy who has played in his entire career in Italy for Milan, for Inter, for Juventus. He's played for big name clubs in Italy all of his life. I see this year will probably be his last in Serie A, and I think his going away party forever will be World Cup 2014.
I mean, why not just go to Roma and just complete the clean sweep of every team in Serie A?
Roma doesn't need any help right now.
No, they don't,
pulling
especially
an
in the
Atletico
midfield.
Madrid. They are undefeated right now in Serie A.
Speaking of Roma, is this a team that is for real? Is this a team that could possibly win Serie A
Absolutely.
and make a great chance of the Champions League next season?
Their depth is fantastic. We talk about Michael Bradley, how that excellent of a move is right there. He's the fourth midfielder in a three-man rotation there. Strootman has done a fantastic job for them already with De Rossi and Miralem Pjanic in the midfield. That's one of the best midfields you'll see in the world. You've already got Totti, you've got Balzaretti right there, some excellent Italian players. They've just top to bottom have an excellent squad.
And looking at it, though, it definitely makes that victory against the MLS All-Stars look a little bit better for the MLS.
Well, they just beat Inter 3-0, and part of that second half, they only had 10 men.
And you still don't have Michael Bradley back yet, who
Exactly.
still isn't at full health, who by far gives them probably the best passing they have in their midfield, in my personal opinion. Strootman is a very good scorer, and him working with Bradley, as you saw in the MLS All-Star game when they played against them, was extremely fun to watch.
And U.S. soccer fans won't have to worry about Bradley not getting enough playing time.
Absolutely.
Because they will cycle those midfielders out. They play a 4-3-3. He might be the fourth option there. He might not get the most starts, but he will get substituted in, especially now. I definitely believe that after this season, Roma will be in the Champions League, so they will definitely have a lot more matches to put him in.
Exactly, and that's one thing that teams do once they go to the Premier League is play more matches. And speaking of international soccer, of course, this is a big time right here coming up, the World Cup qualifications. And this is the final stretch, the final two games for a lot of teams.
It's getting down to
the nitty-gritty, and we're going to start off with England, the Three Lions. They currently are atop of their league or their group right now, but teams like Moldova and Ukraine are both right on their tails. And their next 2 games, they will host both these games, Montenegro and then Poland. Is England in trouble of possibly not making the World Cup, in your opinion?
What kind of world would we be in if possibly England and Mexico couldn't be in the World Cup?
I think it'd be the greatest.
I mean, it just would be so strange to not see those 2 in there. But I don't think England is going to miss out because, interestingly enough, they're in a really tight group, but they've got the best goal differential in UEFA qualifying right now, plus 22. And they've only allowed 3 goals in qualification. Only Spain and Belgium have allowed less goals than England has, yet they still have not guaranteed a spot. It's just very strange.
It's very England, and then when you look at it, ever since the loss of John Terry, in my opinion, they haven't had a leader ever since. Wayne Rooney is not a leader there for England. And so
absolutely not. He plays hard, but he's not a vocal leader.
And Ashley Cole will be out for these next 2 games, and that's one of the best right backs in the world. So that's something you're absolutely going to need in these 2 games. And looking at it, you're playing 2 teams that are both going to be extremely hungry heading in here. Montenegro is in a must-win situation, along with Poland in the game afterwards. And
Montenegro, a team that's beaten England already.
And you look at it, Montenegro beat England already, and Poland drew with them 1-1 at Poland in a game where Poland realistically should have won. A late goal from Kamil Glik kind of saved the Poles, but they entire possession of the game. And really, you look at it, it's just been Wayne Rooney up top. They've had not had any kind of help with him. Sturridge has not been there at all. So this is something very England. I don't think England's going to make it, to be honest. Montenegro seems like this team of destiny you have every single year.
Who is the Ricky Lambert? You don't think he'll come in and save England?
I just don't see it happening. Somehow England will go into a PK at the end of one of the games.
How great would that be?
And they're just going to kick it out of the stadium, and it's not even going to be close. Now, remove from a team that has questions right now to a team that is probably going to make either the playoff round or the qualifying round in Spain and France. But they're currently tied atop right now. And you look at Spain; they had won the UEFA Championship this past season, and they won the World Cup a couple seasons ago. Is Spain in trouble, or is this just kind of bad play for Spain as of late?
I don't say they're in trouble right now because they still have a game in hand against France, and their last 2 games are at home against Belarus and Georgia. So for them to be in the playoffs, they're going to have to drop 3 points to either Belarus or Georgia, and I just don't see that happening. France, they had their opportunity to put Spain in the playoff after Spain drew 1-1 at home against Finland, and then they had to travel to Paris to play France. That was the opportunity that France had, and they couldn't even get a ball in the net there. They lost 1-0.
When looking at it, though, Spain hasn't looked as sharp as they once were. Do you feel that
they got run out of the field against Brazil in the Confederations Cup
at Brazil? So let's be fair.
That's true.
When looking at it, is Spain? Do you still see them as a favorite in this upcoming World Cup?
They're the favorite until they lose in the World Cup.
So no matter what happens, you think even over Brazil?
Absolutely. I think that they're definitely the best team in the world right now. They have the most talent. It's still the best players, the best managers. Until someone knocks them out, they are the best.
So you're looking at it, though. Fernando Torres is a top striker in the World Cup qualifications. For Spain, they have to have him score. Is he going to be consistent enough, you think?
I don't know if he's consistent enough, but you also have Michu just got called in for the Spanish national team. It's not like Torres is their only option at striker right there. They've got plenty of talented players. So if Torres goes on a dry spell, you still have plenty of excellent players that can fill in for him.
And you brought up a great point in Michu. He is a fantastic talent.
He's one of the most underrated
that people don't know about because he's playing for Newcastle. So Swansea City, excuse me. I always get those 2 teams mixed up somehow. But I think he's an underrated player that will help Spain elevate them to the next level, in my opinion. And speaking of elevating to the next level, the United States men's national team has been on a great run as of late. And coming up after the break, we'll tell you that and more about their upcoming games.
Relax, let us pull up a chair as the dining room proudly presents
another brand new episode of the Not So Late Show.
You've been to another house 3 times.
It is another brand new episode of the Not So Late Show.
This is horrible!
Ready for another Not So Late Show. It is another episode of the Not So Late Show.
Snorts.
Look how we turned out.
We'd like to apologize. welcome back. Now to end the net. Derek, you down with OPP?
You know me.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's start off with the U.S. men's national team. They played extremely well as of late. And looking at it, these up 2 games. They host Jamaica at Kansas City, and then they now go to Panama afterwards.
It's a really nice feeling to have qualification already
and not even
wrapped
have
up.
to worry about it. It's almost like you're not even thinking about it, really. It's only thing in your back of your mind.
It's almost like it's 2 friendlies.
In your opinion, do you feel like the United States men's national team has to win these next 2 games?
No, absolutely not. They don't have to win these next 2 games because it's not the strongest roster that they've got out right now. It's not their top players. Donovan is still in there, but Dempsey's not in right now. Bradley's still out hurt. Omar Gonzalez just left with an injury. So I think it's more important to be a little bit more experimental in these games, try and figure out what works, what doesn't work. Unfortunately, one thing I was looking forward to in this was getting more work of Omar Gonzalez and Beasler together. That's obviously not going to happen with the injury. So it's just something you're going to figure out situational things for the upcoming World Cup.
Speaking of, which is very sad to see, because Omar Gonzalez was a guy, him and Beasler really haven't got a lot of time together, and it's really frustrating to see these 2 guys not getting more experience together. Is that a thing you need to worry about if you're a U.S. men's national team fan, these 2 not pairing more up as a center back coming up in the World Cup time?
We're still a ways off from the World Cup. There's still going to be plenty of friendly opportunities to do it, but I do think it does hurt that they don't, in a competitive situation where you're playing a couple teams that will be Panama will certainly be desperate because they'll have their World Cup lives on the line. But when you put them in a situation like that, it gives you more experience than it does in a friendly. So obviously, it hurts that they can't play in these games together, but there still will be plenty of time for them to get playing time together.
I think an interesting question that someone actually brought up the other day was obviously the crowd in Brazil is going to be absolutely crazy.
Oh, it's going to be phenomenal.
It's going to be amazing, and it's going to be almost like a CONCACAF actual environment. So when looking at it, do you think that the U.S. playing teams like Panama, which are usually rough environments, Costa Rica is a very tough place, and so is Mexico, is this going to help out the United States in a big way playing in these CONCACAF road games in the World Cup?
I think there definitely will be a sense of familiarity that teams like the U.S. will have that maybe some UEFA teams won't have because they won't be in a situation of playing against a Central or a South American country, being in that environment with that rabid of a fan base. But as far as the game goes, it's still just going to be the most talented team will win. It won't affect them as much as some people would like to believe.
I think that's a very good point because when looking at it, Brazil is going to be a favorite there, and it's going to be a little bit different of an environment going to Brazil. A lot more fans there, in my opinion, that are going to be very rowdy.
It also won't be as rowdy if it's not Brazil. If the U.S. is playing someone like Iran.
Those Iranians I've heard get pretty
I don't
crazy.
see the Brazilians down there getting too rowdy for that game.
I think an interesting point, though, if they draw against someone like Portugal, that's a classic. They're somewhat.
That
near
would be
Brazil,
an interesting
so
draw.
that's a thing you need to look out for as well. But let's move on from the team to more or less the players. And let's start off with Terrence Boyd. He's been lighting up the Austria League and has been doing a fantastic job. Got the call in. Is this Terrence Boyd? Does he need to come out and play extremely well right now?
He needs to do well in the camp. I don't know if he has to come out and score a goal, as much as I would love to see a Terrence Boyd goal in one of these qualifiers. It'll just be fantastic. But he needs to do well in the camps. I think behind the scenes is where he has to leave a good impression. In the game, he'll certainly get an opportunity to play well, but if he works well this week for practice with Klinsmann, if he shows a lot of improvement and it shows what he has improved over in Austria, I think that will be the most important thing. Because right now, his most direct competition for getting a spot on the World Cup roster could be Herculez Gomez. And we saw he got a hat trick his first game back,
for granted,
so he's doing pretty well.
That team they played over in Mexico was not a very strong club, but it's good to see Herculez Gomez back and giving him more options.
Anytime a U.S. striker scoring a goal at their club level is great.
And I think Aaron Johansson is almost it's almost like he's a lock to make the World Cup team. It seems very likely he is. Jurgen Klinsmann has liked him a whole lot ever since he came in there, and he's playing very well right now over in the Netherlands.
He's certainly lived up to the hype.
A fantastic player. But looking at it now from the offensive side to the defensive side, Brad Evans is the guy that got called up at right back for the U.S. men's national team, and really he's the only option. I know Orozco Fiscal just got called in because of Gonzalez going
Cameron
down.
will probably be moved to center back.
Now, is Brad Evans, is he the guy? Is this the guy that Jurgen Klinsmann going to use for the rest of the time?
It looks like that's what Klinsmann is doing in this situation, and that's the one thing I'm worried about going into the World Cup is the fullback situation for the United States, because I really hope that Klinsmann is just not married to the idea of having DeMarcus Beasley and Brad Evans as your 2 fullbacks going into a World Cup competition. I think the best option right now, especially now because Timmy Chandler is just gone.
He's almost not even.
We have no idea where Timmy Chandler is right now. I think Jeff Cameron, if he continues to play well at right back for Stoke City in the Premier League,
why not?
Play the guy who's playing right back in the Premier League. That just seems like the best option to me.
And a guy who's playing extremely well. You look at the goal he had against Arsenal. While it really wasn't his play, but he followed the play like a good right back should and finished when the ball was given him the opportunity.
He's played almost Steve Cherundolo-like for Stoke City. It's nothing spectacular, but he puts in a solid 90 for you every game. On the player ratings, he'll get you a 6 or a 7, and you don't realize it, but he hasn't done anything bad to hurt his team.
It's just very frustrating to see, but, as you've seen from Jurgen before and after, he's a guy that continually just looks at it and he just makes his own decisions. But I think maybe
it's worked out so far.
Maybe the happiest thing I saw from this roster, though, was Mix Discaroo.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Do you think Mix Discaroo will be in the starting 11 come against Jamaica right there? Will he be in the starting 11?
In the starting 11? I'd say so because of the injuries that have happened in the midfield. With Bradley being out, I think you have Beckerman and Jones, I believe, will be your 2 defensive midfielders, and I believe he'll be the attacking one, with Dempsey and Zusi being the 2 wide players. So I think he'll be his opportunity to show what he can do in more of a playmaking role.
So will they be a 4-4-2 in your opinion then?
It will be
with Donovan up top?
The 4. I forgot about Donovan.
So
have him instead of Zusi is what I mean. So
so Zusi's sitting again.
It'll be the 4-2-3-1 that it's been. He'll definitely come in the game with it being in Kansas City. He'll definitely come in as a substitute. But I think you'll definitely see that 4-2-3-1 that you've seen from the national team in the past.
I think one very interesting thing to look at in the roster is the players they called in. A lot of people maybe thought they were trying to get a youth movement, try to bring younger players in. Now, obviously, John Anthony Brooks had an injury and couldn't be called in.
Right.
But he really didn't bring up any younger guys. He stuck with the more experienced lineup. Was this a good idea, in your opinion, to bring in the more experienced U.S. vets?
I'm not sure. I think, like I said, these 2 games should be experimental. I'm not sure if he got experimental enough with it because I would have liked to see players that haven't gotten, not Connor Casey. I was thinking more of an Eric Lehigh type of player. He's been doing pretty well for Nottingham Forest, so I think he's someone that I think could have come in, especially since we're not entirely sure what the left or right back situation is.
And now Zach Whitbread is also another guy that people were talking about in the championship as well.
It's a little surprised not to see Bobby Wood because he's gotten a couple call-ups.
He's done very good at 1860 Munich, and that's I know it's a second Bundesliga squad, but he's
gotten the call-up before.
And he's finished when he's had the opportunity for that team. It's just injuries and injuries and injuries. It's really racked up for this young player. But looking at it against Jamaica obviously isn't. Both teams have no reason to really. There's no thing for them to play for.
Jamaica maybe has a super outside shot, but they're done.
Speaking about it, if you're the United States looking at it, you've got Mexico, who might need a U.S. victory against Panama. What do you see happen here? Is Jurgen just going to bring out a younger roster against Panama?
That's part of the reason why I think an experimental squad would have been such a good idea, because if you throw out a bunch of younger players that haven't played together very much, maybe if you come out and lose to Panama, people don't start pointing fingers and start to wonder. But the roster is the roster, and you're going to go out there and you're going to try and win every game you play. And the U.S., I would certainly be disappointed if they came out and lost just to keep Mexico out of the World Cup, as much as I would enjoy Mexico being out of the World Cup.
That'd be very fun in my opinion. But coming up after the break, we'll get a further in-depth look at Mexico and their attempt to make the World Cup, along with a little bit of MLS action mixed in there as well. Stay tuned. You're watching In the Net.
This is better from the United States. Bradley working the 1-2. Bradley's in here. Covering by Torres Nilo. That was a slick move.
I know you. You want to make the most of your college experience. You want to be inspired. You want to be challenged. And you want to explore and discover your passion. You want to make a difference. And you can, at a place that puts you first, where the university's commitment to each and every student is engraved in stone. The University of Arkansas, the U of A.
Don't let this be you. Look both ways before crossing the street, even when using a crosswalk.
Welcome back. Now, ironically, we're going from a Clint Dempsey goal here to talking about the Mexican national team. But Mexico has a brand new coach in Jose Fernando Tena, I believe. Is that the correct pronunciation there? Now, looking at it now, is this the right move for Mexico, making a new hire, or should they try to give the interim guy a little bit longer chance, in your opinion?
Well, I think that in this, it's completely all balls to the wall right now. It's completely desperation time right now for Mexico. They have to qualify. This guy, he's gonna be here for 2 games, maybe the World Cup if they qualify. I just don't see him being a long-term solution. He's just definitely the guy stopping the flood right now.
So you don't see him at all being an answer to this question that Mexico has?
Not long term. I could possibly see him being the coach of the World Cup if they do qualify, but absolutely he's not going to be the coach for more than a year.
That's very interesting. So Mexico would possibly going into a World Cup with an interim head coach. That'd be a very interesting thing to look at, and just kind of describes the way Mexico has been this past entire year. But their first matchup they have is at home against Panama, who they're currently tied with but are behind on goal differential.
The biggest game of the hex so far by far.
It is going to be an absolutely amazing environment at Azteca. It's going to be fantastic. Do you think Mexico, what do they need to do to beat Panama?
Well, I think to beat Panama, they're going to have to score early because we know how desperate Mexico is, and the fans know how desperate Mexico is. So if they don't go up early, if it's the 30th minute, if they're getting close to halftime, it is still 0-0. Absolutely, I could see the Mexican fans starting to turn on their team a little bit because it's well documented how they've been having a hard time scoring at home.
And start throwing those cervezas on the field.
Oh,
That'd be no bien if they did that, I think. But also Mexico, looking at it, then they have to once again host another team. Blanking on the name right now. Afterwards.
No, they are going to Costa Rica.
Going to Costa Rica, which is no fun because look what happened to the United States, a 3-1 loss.
Never any fun going to
So
Costa
do you see
Rica.
this game against Panama as a must-win game?
It is a must-win because right now, because they've only scored 4 goals the entire hex, they are currently down on Panama in goal differential. So if they get a point against Panama, just a point against Panama, they're still behind them. And even if they lose to the United States, if they lose to Costa Rica, they're out.
It's very interesting looking at it because the United States will be going up against Panama at Panama, but the United States will have nothing to play for.
Right.
And when you look at it, Mexico is going to Costa Rica, oddly enough, with Costa Rica really have nothing to play for, maybe except for the top spot. So do you think that they'll be facing weaker teams?
Costa Rica having the opportunity to knock Mexico out of the World Cup will be
motivation.
Be enough
motivation.
That's motivation. I mean, I don't see why that wouldn't be motivation enough for anybody.
So when looking at it, Mexico, will they finish in the top 4 in your opinion?
They will finish 4th in my opinion.
And they'll go up against New Zealand.
New Zealand, of course,
won, I believe it was the Conan Bowl. What is it called again exactly?
I believe it's OFC.
OFC, yes.
Oceania?
The Oceania Fed. Yeah,
I mean, they're the only team in there worth note. Except for Tahiti, of course. I can't forget about Tahiti.
Who forgets about them, that great Confederations goal against Nigeria. But when looking at it, can they defeat New Zealand? Is this something that's going to be an easy test if they do get the 4th spot?
It's certainly not going to be an easy test because the thing that New Zealand is going to force them to do is score goals because that's what New Zealand does. They will park the bus and then some in front of their goal because they are an absolutely excellent defensive team, but they don't score a whole lot of goals. So if they have that playoff against New Zealand, you can absolutely expect 1-0, 0-0 games. There's not going to be a lot of scoring in that game. So if their struggles to score and continue, I can definitely see that hurting them against New Zealand.
And as we've seen before, it's a very unpredictable thing when those playoffs come around.
You can't
Looking at
rely on
France
just
and the
one
Republic
game.
of Ireland, a Thierry Henry handball changed everything. So things like that.
Yeah,
is very
one bad bounce and New Zealand can be off on the counter, sending Mexico home.
Which is an amazing, interesting thing to think about because Mexico, you've always thought of them as the CONCACAF, the top of CONCACAF. In your opinion, has it changed? Is the U.S. now the top team in CONCACAF?
I think right now it's 1 and 1A because they're both still, even though Mexico has struggled mightily this hex, they still are one of the 2 giants in CONCACAF. They're still the top dog that everyone wants to knock off. All of those little teams in Central America, they want to beat Mexico.
Now, when looking at it, the United States, there's a good chance of them making some noise in the World Cup. When you're looking at it, though, there's teams like Costa Rica that are improving intensely. Honduras is continuing all the time to improve, and Mexico as well is a very solid team. Are there multiple teams that can make some noise in the World Cup, in your opinion, from this group, or is it just the United States and maybe Mexico?
I think, as always, as it is for every team in the World Cup, except for maybe the top 4 or 5 teams, it very much depends on the draw. If, say, Costa Rica gets in and they get to play someone like Bosnia or Switzerland or some Iranian team or Iran or Jordan, they can definitely possibly even move out of the group because they've got players like Sabarillo, they've got Brian Ruiz, players who have played in excellent leagues. Ruiz doing excellent for Fulham in the Premier League right now. So they've got guys that have experience and can beat a lesser-known European team.
Had to drop Fulham in there, didn't
I did.
you? Absolutely. Got a nice little one to win over Stoke City. But let's move on now to the PK's edition. Now, sadly, Rachel couldn't be here, but she also currently holds the lead. So, too bad for her.
Good.
We're about to tie it up right now.
Up.
So, 5 games. Let's start off with Montenegro at England. Reed, what am I talking about right now? Eric,
maybe should we go to the back
and
go ask Reed what he thinks about this game?
Fantastic job TDing the show.
No, I'd say in Wembley Stadium, Montenegro had a really tough time. They did beat England in Montenegro, but going to Wembley with England needing to win this game, I think they get the win.
All right, I'll have to go with England. Probably win this game. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with a draw. I think it'll be a draw, 1-1 draw. England will disappoint. Maybe go on to the next game. Really, both teams have qualified, but it's a very good matchup. Belgium at Croatia. Who will win that one?
I've got a draw in this one. It'll be a very entertaining game. These are two teams that look very good, and I think both of them could be sleepers coming up in this World Cup. Belgium has some excellent young talent, so does Croatia. I think this ends up being something like a 2-2 draw.
Give me Belgium 3-0. I think they're just extremely talented and too powerful for
those
this
Croatian fans, that's quite an atmosphere.
Yeah, Fellaini is very good, but very quickly, Egypt-Ghana next matchup. Who do you got winning that one?
I'm gonna have to pick Bob Bradley. I know Ghana is the Americans' kryptonite, it seems like, but Bob Bradley's done an excellent job with Egypt.
I think Egypt has on a roll right now, good momentum, so give me Egypt in this game. Panama and Mexico, the next matchup. Who do you have winning that one?
I'm gonna go with the draw in this one, 1-1. Mexico does get a goal that they need, but I think Panama, Torres gets one late.
Give me Panama as well. 2-1 victory, almost like the Honduras game at Estadio Azteca. Mexico out of the World Cup, in my opinion.
Fantastic.
Fantastic stuff. And the very last one, Jamaica at United States, Sporting KC Park. Who do you got?
I've got United States 3-1. And I will go out on a limb and say that one of the 2 Sporting KC players will score a goal in this game.
Yeah, Jamaica will tie the game. It'll be a 1-1 draw. Kind of disappointing, but I feel like the United States will not be playing their best. But I think I'll do this here for In the Net. For Eric Harris, I'm Brett Rorie. Have a great day and even better tomorrow.
Pull up a chair as the dining room proudly presents
another brand new episode of the Not So Late Show.
You've been to another house 3 times.
It is another brand new episode of the Not So Late Show.
This is horrible!
Ready for another Not So Late Show. It is another episode of the Not So Late Show.
Snorts.
Look how we turned out.
We'd like to apologize